What's going on, everybody? My name's Franco, and today I'm going to be going over some tight ends that I feel are a little bit overhyped or a little bit overvalued right now in fantasy football. So I'm going off this just based off their current ADP and their current ranking, and these are some guys that I don't feel like will live up to that bill. Obviously, like with the other ones I've already done so far, that doesn't mean I don't think they'll be good. I think it just means that they won't really live up to where they should be in accordance to where you draft them. And the tight end position's a little weird. I don't really feel as strongly about these guys being overrated as I do, let's say, the wide receivers or the running backs, because the tight end department is always just a crapshoot at the end of the day unless you get Kelsey. So it really just depends on what you think you're going for at the right value. Obviously, if you value a tight ends earlier, there's a couple guys that might be a little more in the bust territory as opposed to later values where you're kind of just throwing something and hope it sticks. So as always, like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Comment if you disagree with anything, or if you agree, just assurance would always be nice. And just let me know what you'd like to see next. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and go with George Kittle, who's currently coming in as the tight end number 5. After a couple of years of basically being a consensus top 3 or even top 2 tight ends, he's definitely dropped off a little bit. And for him, I think there's two main issues as to why I think he won't be a top 5 tight end, especially around a 40 ADP for me. That's a little too high for him. It's way too high, actually. One, I think, is health. He's been off the field a little bit for the last couple seasons. He's never really stayed healthy for a full season, and that's not to say that he's injury prone. He's honestly playing one of the most demanding positions for a very run-heavy offense that utilizes him not only in the pass game, but in the block game as well. He's just really never off the field, and that really just takes a toll on your body, obviously, after all these seasons. And I'm definitely a little bit worried in the health department, especially drafting somebody in the 40s of ADP when they're not really consistently on the field, and especially at the tight end position, where if assuming you don't take a backup tight end because you drafted George Kittle, you're going to be left with someone in like the TE 13 to 15 range that you don't necessarily want, and especially after drafting Kittle this high. Another reason is because, like I already said, he's a very much more blocking tight end than some of the other tight ends in this class. Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce in that top 5 tier. They're more route runners. They prefer to be on the field catching passes, whereas Kittle has no problem laying himself out there for a few blocks, which is fine, and it would work great with Garoppolo in a normal run game. But with Trey Lance, I feel like the offense is going to take a much more run approach. They're going to run the ball a lot more with Debo, Trey Lance, whoever the hell they line up as their running back. And I think it'll force Kittle to have a little more of a backup role in the offense. I feel like they found their footing with Debo Samuel last year, and they kind of found their offensive identity. And I don't see them shifting away from it, especially given the change of quarterbacks, which is, all but assumed at this point. The 2 games that Kittle had with Trey Lance as a quarterback last year, he put up 3.5 points and 4 points in PPR. So nothing too... I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. That's just terrible. And that's not something you'd want out of someone at this range, especially considering one of those games is against the Texans. So it just becomes a matter of will they develop a chemistry over the course of the season? And it's too soon to tell on that, but right now I feel like it's a little bit too high. Given his current price point to draft George Kittle at this value, I think there's some other tight ends like Dalton Schultz that come to mind. Dalton Schultz did finish as a top 5 last year, and I think he'll finish back in that same vein this next season. So maybe not leave George Kittle in your top 5, just my opinion. Someone else who I think last year was a consensus top 5 was TJ Hockenson. Right now he's being ranked as a tight end 7, but basically 20 spots below Kittle in ADP, and that's about fair. I would say that's a little bit too high for him, pretty much for the same exact reasons that I would give Kittle. Hockenson definitely was a little bit more on the injured side last year as well. He's definitely not as injury prone as some people might make him out to be. He's normally been pretty decently healthy. He'll get you most of the games, but at this value, I think it's a little bit too high. And in his quarterback department, it's a little bit different. I don't see them changing up much in terms of their play style. They had a pretty balanced offense last year, but that being said, I don't trust Jared Goff to get him the targets that he needs, especially with the emergence of Amon-Ra St. Brown, the return of Josh Reynolds, and the drafting of Jameson Williams, and the signing of DJ Chark. There's a lot of playmakers. DeAndre Swift, too. There's a lot of playmakers on that offense, and I don't know if he's going to get the required volume and the required touches necessary. This is basically, I'm just regurgitating what I said in my previous video with Amon-Ra St. Brown, is that this Lions offense is a very risky one to go by because they have all the power to be this like high-flowing, high-powered offense. But with Jared Goff there, I'm not sure if I trust it, especially given last year's version of Jared Goff, which ended up with a lot of low-scoring games, just not able to find the red zone and the end zone for that matter even a lot. I don't really trust him that much to keep a good drives going and get him the ball enough. Besides that, I think he shouldn't finish lower than like tight end 8, tight end 9, assuming he stays healthy. And it'll be a decent enough pick, which is fine. Tight end 7, that's okay. What more concerns me is the ADP of 60. there's still a lot of good backup wide receivers, running backs that you can use as your backups on your bench and get your depth pieces a little more filled out before taking someone like Hockenson. Next one on my list is Mike Gesicki, the Dolphins tight end, who's Dolphins wide receiver. If you're whoever you're asking, they're paying him as a wide receiver, or a tight end rather. But I think Mike Gesicki has a fair ADP, but that tight end 12 does scare me. Gesicki, if you look at his numbers, he puts up pretty good numbers, but it's mostly just because he's one of the few tight ends that really doesn't miss games. So he's a little bit different than the ones I've listed before. He's pretty healthy, and he normally is on the field for a lot, and he acts as a wide receiver, but he just not really have a high enough ceiling for me to really want to take a chance on him at this price point. Especially at the tight end 12, there are some others that I'd like, as my previous video mentioned, maybe like a Cole Kmet or a Dawson Knox, who have a little bit higher of a ceiling and figure to be a little bit more of the focal point of their offense. I'm big on Jalen Waddle and his emergence. Tyreek Hill will do great things for Tua as well. And then there's still another abundance of tight ends and backup pass catchers. Cedric Wilson comes to mind on this Dolphins team that will be there and be able to take some volume away from Gesicki. Or in previous years, you had Jalen Waddle's rookie year and a bunch of other middling wide receivers. Devontae Parker was still there, but he was often hurt. So Gesicki had a much more focal point of the offense. I don't think he'll finish at the tight end 12. I would be fine taking a flyer on him as a late round tight end, maybe pair him up with someone else and just see if one of them sticks. But I really wouldn't be shocked or surprised if in some 10-team leagues he goes completely undrafted, and I don't really see him having that high of a ceiling this year to match the TE12. And on the topic of quarterback play, we have Noah Fant, who can't escape Drew Lock. It's just the way it is. He's stuck with him forever. They'll retire the same year. They'll go to the same retirement home and nursing homes, and they'll be next door neighbors. They'll be friends. Noah Fant comes in with a very abysmal 150 ADP, tight end 14. I just don't really see a ceiling with Drew Lock being as high. Similar to Gesicki, I don't really see the worth, the risk being able to pay off. If he's a backup tight end on your team, you want to keep around just in case he blows up, that's fine. But there's really no way, aside in like a 14-16 team league, that he should ever be starting in anybody's lineup, barring any crazy injuries in the beginning of the season. The ceiling really isn't all that there for me. The target volume won't be there. Even in Denver, when Drew Lock was only throwing to Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and even then they weren't, they were still kind of finding their footing in the league. He didn't have enough chemistry with Noah Fant to get anything going. And now he'll have Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who I'd argue are a better duo, or at least just a more proven duo than Jeudy and Sutton. Obviously, that might change after this year when they both have Russell Wilson for a season. We can compare them. But regardless, I don't trust Noah Fant and that Seahawks offense. I feel like they're going to definitely run the ball a lot more with Drew Lock, or Geno Smith for that matter. Either way, it just doesn't feel trustworthy to me. I don't really like the appeal of him, and like I said, at this point, I'm kind of reaching for people to put on this list. Tight end department's hard. I don't think Noah Fant will finish as a top 15 tight end regardless of that. So those are some guys that I'm not as high on this year. As always, like I said, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will get back to you guys in a future video.